Welcome to another edition of Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brannon. In this program, we explore the real stories from key executives to find the leadership lessons that drove their success, whether in good times or bad. We got a great program for you today, so let's make it happen. Well, we're really lucky today to have with us Gordon Tormohlen. Gordon is a longtime auto industry guy that just has an amazing track record. And Gordon, thanks for being with us. Looking forward to having a little conversation.
It's a real pleasure, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Now, there's a lot of people who have been in the car business a while, but I'm rarely finding someone who's been in the car business as long as I have. Did you say you started when you were in your early teens?
Yeah, I was 13 years old when I began. So actually, my dad started when he was 17 back in 1940. And so I
Yeah.
came along and wanted to spend more time with dad. And then that's how he did it, was he put me to work for 50 cents an hour.
Wow. Wow, that's big money back then, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to ask you the exact year, but I mean, probably before electricity. No,
Yeah.
almost.
He
Yeah.
might have written his checks on stone tablets. I'm not sure.
Yeah, right. So, and you've been in Northern Illinois that whole time.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
great. Um, right now, you're running a business that's called Tormohlen Good People Automotive. Tell me just a little bit about that.
Well, Tormohlen's Good People Automotive is a independent dealership, so we're non-franchised. It operates in that space, and commonly we're in the area because there are many market niches in the independent space,
Right.
but this niche is what's commonly referred to as buy here, pay here. So we are a used car dealership. We have our own finance company. We have our own warranty company. We have a service department. So those are the areas in which we play.
Now, but for a period of time, I think starting in 1983, you and your dad had a Chrysler store, and
That's correct.
as well as the current operation.
Yeah, he had a Chevrolet store and got a little discouraged in the early 80s with the high interest rates and everything else.
Right.
Sold it out to his partner, and we started looking around. And as it happened, in our same hometown, the Chrysler dealer had gone bankrupt.
Mm.
So we bought the assets, and it was shut down for about 3 months until we got everything lined up. And we opened that up in 1983 and ran it for 20 years. Had a
For
great
20
run.
years. And notable here in the notes that I have, you took a bankrupt store, which is not necessarily a good sign about what the prospects for the future business of Chrysler in that location might have been. And for 20 years, you did pretty well. I mean, you won 19 Chrysler Five-Star Excellence Awards. You were Time Magazine Quality Dealer of the Year and won the Malcolm Baldrige-based Lincoln Award for Business Excellence. I mean, that's not too shabby for a bankrupt store.
Well, yeah, we did well with it. There was a mentality that took place immediately with the store. I mean, when we knew we were going to be awarded the franchise and everything else, I started looking through invoices and things like that. I found out that the Omni that was still remaining in this guy's inventory had $183 markup on it. And I thought, what have we done? But we start with a small crew of very motivated people, and with a service ethic. That's the thing that we thought was key to everything. My father had been one of the first Chevrolet service supremacy dealers in the nation. I think they were
Mhm.
number 8. And so we brought that along. And actually, when we were talking with the dealer placement people from Chrysler, we asked them, what are your levels of service excellence? He
Mhm.
had to call somebody else and figure it out. He didn't know. And maybe that was an indicator. I don't know. But we started out, had a service manager that didn't meet our expectations the first 6 months,
Right.
brought in another guy that was a former Marine sergeant, and just, I mean, he ran it with precision. He cared about customers. And you'll see some of this as we talk, I'm sure.
Mhm.
We're very service oriented. Everybody, regardless of who they are, deserves respect, and their vehicles should be fixed properly the first time. And that's what built that business into what it became over the 20 years that we had it. We were at one point we had 3 locations and 72 employees, which was a pretty good jump from the 10 we started out with. And we had fun. It was innovative, and everybody was taking on our company values, which is critical, and it worked.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a tremendous experience. So when you were younger and you were coming up and then you guys got into this store, was there some particular like key moment that let you know you were going to be in the car business? Because you could have been in a lot of businesses, I guess. And I saw that you went to Northwood Institute. You got multiple degrees, in the
Yes.
automotive arena as well. So you've almost known from the early days that you were going to be in this business.
Yeah, I took to it like a duck to water, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
When I started and when I was age 13, I was a body shop apprentice, and they basically had me sanding and masking cars off and things of that nature. And I was saving my money, and
Mhm.
I had, I don't know, 300-400 bucks in my checking account, and they took in a Cushman meter maid cart. They had a bid for the city, and they sold them
Yeah.
some squad cars, little Briggs and Stratton one-cylinder motor with a three on the tree. And
Yeah.
I knew they had $25 in it because I talked to all the salespeople, and they were wondering what he was going to
Right.
do with it.
Right.
And I hounded my father, and he often talked about how this was probably the worst decision he ever made, but finally he succumbed and let me buy that thing. And
Yeah.
I fixed it up, welded the fenders back on it, painted it blaze red, and sold it for 250, and I thought I was JP Morgan.
Yeah. Right.
And from
Yeah.
that point on, I took off. And before I got my driver's license, I was on my 21st car. So the disease had taken place, and I just, away
Right.
we went with it. It's been fun.
Well, it's like anything in life when you realize that you can add value to something and that value can come back to you for you and your family. That's really what
Exactly.
business is about, isn't it? So that's
Yes.
fantastic. And since those days and now in running your current operation and those early awards and that background, you've also won many other awards. So not to embarrass you, but State Quality Dealer of the Year. You're a founding member of the Fellowship of Christian Auto Dealers. The Serving on the Illinois Independent Automobile Dealers Board, the Northwood University Automotive Curriculum Advisory Board, Highland Community College Auto Technology Advisory Board. And now, really culminating in your current role, you're chairman of the National Independent Automobile Dealers Association, or board of directors. And most people know NADA, but they don't know NIADA because, as you said earlier, the buy here, pay here stores don't and or the various types of used car dealerships don't get as much recognition. But this is a pretty big group of dealers nationwide that's
Yes,
pretty
it is.
significant. And I mean, I applaud you in being the head of it. But talk to us about what you see as that organization and the important things that have happened there for you.
Well, first of all, Wayne, thanks for making sure that everybody out there knows I can't say no to save my life. I mean, when I see opportunity, I just jump into it. And it has produced a great number of learning experiences for me. And it's grown me, and I've gotten way more back than I ever thought I would, and certainly more than I gave. My current role with NIADA, and for those that are unfamiliar, if you look at the roots of NADA,
Mhm.
it was started in 1946 in a dealer meeting in Chicago to stop the government from setting trade-in prices on used vehicles. At that same time, NIADA was formed. It was actually at that point called the National Association of Used Car Dealers. And it over the years they renamed it the
Mhm.
National Association of Independent Auto Dealers. But it's the same space, but it's a different business model. So we represent 28,000 dealership small businesses across the nation. We do training, legislative support, as well as vendor and industry partner support. I would say that NADA does an outstanding job with franchise dealers, but they've got a whole new set of issues in helping the dealers navigate the waters with their
Yeah.
franchisors.
Mhm.
We don't have that. What we have are a bunch
Right.
of very entrepreneurial business people. Many of them started out maybe washing a car, for Uncle Hank, who had a service garage or a service station,
Right.
and somebody gave up, said they wanted to get rid of that car, and they paid him 300 bucks. They sold it for 1,000, and now they're in the car business. And all the way, and we have dealers still within our association that sell 5 and 10 cars a month. And we've got dealers that sell 1,000 to 1,200 vehicles a month. So they're all different sizes, various business models. The NIADA is equipped to support all of them within the model that they
Mhm.
choose.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's fantastic. It's great to know that there are organizations like this to support the business because, I've been around the auto business for a few years myself and around a number of dealerships. And the one thing I can say is there's a lot of really good people out there
yes.
trying to run their businesses and serve the communities, and it absolutely undervalued. I mean, survey after survey, year after year, over the decades, have really indicated that the reputation of our business, I'll call it, has not really I don't think been fairly represented completely. And I think the organizations that you're a part of, as you say, if it's the NADA, there's a lot of negotiations with the OEMs and a lot of discussions that need to take place.
Certainly.
Barring that, you're really focusing on the government and the municipalities you're working in and the communities you're working in, and on the excellence in business is really key. You said something about the service ethic, and I always like to ask about kind of a defining moment for success before we get into a broader conversation. So.
Sure.
Um, Clearly it was a defining moment when you bought that first vehicle and turned it around and made 250 bucks, and it kind of got your appetite for more set up. But was there something, if you look at the things that you mentioned, service ethic, precision in the way you do business, mutual human respect, passion for pursuing opportunities, I think all of those could be keystone leadership principles for success. But any one of those, or is the service ethic kind of been the springboard? Talk to me just for a minute about that.
I think there's two pieces that evolved there over a period of time, and the first one harkens back to when I was 7 years old. I mean, I was blessed to have a really, really great father, just an incredible man, good business guy, and a guy of faith who really brought me along. And there was a
Mhm.
point at which he was doing a volunteer gig with the Lions Club in Rockford, Illinois, and they had set up, they were going to sell Fuller brushes and brooms off the back of a flatbed truck at the back of a mall area in Rockford.
Mhm.
The Saturday thing, he took the day off, got the truck from the dealership he worked for at the time. He was a manager, so he could pull that kind of thing off.
Right.
And when we got there, they put me, little 7-year-old Gordy, on the back of the flatbed and gave me a bullhorn. So here, see if you can get some people to come. So a couple things came out of that. I'm just yelling at these people and, hey, yeah, you lady in the green Chevelle, yeah, come over here. You need a broom. And I'm sure at the end of the day, these guys that this Lions Club, their heads were exploding. Probably get that kid, just take that thing away from him. But what he did at the end was more critical than anything else. He got me off the truck, said, "Hey, did you have fun?" Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like the center of attention. I'm yelling at all these people, and they were
Yeah.
buying rooms. He goes, "Do you know what you did?" I said, "No, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, we made a profit on these brooms, and we're going to take that profit and we're going to donate it because we're building a Lions Club Center for the Blind here in our town."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then as we had our ice cream cone afterward, he drove me by the construction site where they were going to do this. And it stuck in my head, serving others. Now,
Mhm.
the other piece of that is just my natural drive.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you where I got it from. I guess I was born with it, but those two pieces went together to start my career. By
Mhm.
the time I was 14 years old, I was in charge of the muscular dystrophy telethon here in town, and we blew it up. And we did the 24-hour marathon. They had
Yeah.
table tennis players from Russia that came in and gave a demonstration on the showroom of the Chevrolet dealership at the time, and they did all these things. And that's the little entrepreneur in me that was starting to grow. And
Mhm.
we wound up, the previous year they'd gotten like $10,000 in contributions. We did a little over 32,000 that year. And I could see what I could build if I could just
Mhm.
blow it up. And yet it was important to me to be serving others too. So I've drawn those things into my career path, and they've never failed me.
Yeah, in the business coaching and consulting that I do, one of the key principles that I see as a underlying reason for success is to put the customer first, to be customer focused, and be service oriented. Have that service ethic. If you're trying to serve your customer and serve the community and serve your employees, that servant leadership style goes a long way. There's been a lot of books written about that. I think you fell into it for some reason naturally, as you say. You had an aptitude for it, but I will maybe come back to that theme as we talk further. So, what I'd like to do now, Gordon, if you'll humor me, is in this program, what we try to do is look for the pearls of wisdom that are really deeply embedded in the real life stories that we all have in our lives, especially for someone like yourself. You've been through a number of businesses, a number of organizations, held a number of leadership roles. So let's focus on one or two stories for a few minutes here, and let's see if we can find a few more of those pearls among them. So talk to me about like a major hurdle you had to overcome, or, a major turning point where you had to spring forward, capture a competitive advantage. I'll let you be the judge, but set it up for us, set up the situation for us, give us a little background, level set us, and then let's talk about that for a few minutes, if you would, please.
Okay, and I'm going to throw out the lesson first because you'll
Okay.
see it. The story
Yeah,
was pretty
sure.
horrible at the
Yeah,
time. But we
your call.
in the Bible in chapter 5 of Romans, okay,
Yeah.
there's a portion in which it tells you to that you should be proud of your your trials because your trials produce character and endurance
Hmm.
and hope and faith. So we had a situation. We had a great run with the Chrysler store, but in 2000, actually the day before Christmas, which really wasn't great. We knew we had a tough time occurring. The cash had not been good for the last few months, and that's the slower end of the season, so it's somewhat expected.
Hmm.
But it had
Yep.
been extremely arduous. And then our banker showed up and laid a demand letter on my desk for 670 some thousand dollars. And it turned out that we were out of trust because what we discovered later was we'd experienced a seven-figure theft in the business.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, to go through all of that, I'll try and give you the elevator version, but
Yeah.
it was a clarifying moment. And at that point in time, these guys are asking me, well, hey, do you have a condo in Boca that you want to tell us about? Do you have a girlfriend on the side? Do you have a cocaine habit? And
Well, I got
being the
all of those, but that didn't take the money.
I had none of those.
Yeah, right,
I try and
right.
live my life right, and
Yeah, of course.
so
But this was an employee, I expect, huh?
it turned out to be an office manager.
Yeah,
And we navigated that situation. I mean, initially my reaction was, well, if you're going to be that way about it, you can have it. I've got my faith in my family and my skill set, and the heck with the
right.
rest.
Yeah.
That allowed us to negotiate with the bank, and it was a 2 year plus battle that we went through trying to work our way through this, and we were actually doing quite well. The new office manager came in and got tight on cash in the fall of the year and didn't tell me right away. So then the state came in and they pulled our license, which was embarrassing and a real problem. But at that point,
Sure.
you couldn't operate a store with $275,000 a month in overhead and not be able to sell cars.
Right.
So we sold the franchise. It took a while to get all that stuff cleared up, get everybody taken care of. By the time all of it cleared and we were able to get relicensed, because the state could then see that we were doing the right thing and that things had been
Hmm.
documented and nobody was trying to hide
Right.
anything. So we were able to get relicensed rather easily. But I was down to my last $10,000 in capital.
Wow.
And to start by here, pay her operation like we have usually takes it north of $1 million.
Hmm.
We did it with 10. So
Wow.
no need there.
10,000.
$10,000.
Yeah.
So what we did was, it was a one-man operation. This is I should back up a little bit. We had gotten into buy here, pay here in the 90s, and it was a
Hmm.
very profitable, very good way to expand our used
Right.
car operations.
Right.
The gentleman that bought the Chrysler franchise didn't wanted nothing to do with these scuzzy buy here, pay here people.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
fine.
Right.
And then famously told me I'd be out of business in 6 months. That was 22 years ago. So, but we started as a one-man operation. My dad came up and he'd hold the fort down while I do collection calls and things of that nature. And we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
slowly built it.
Yeah.
And the takeaway on that more than anything else, Wayne, I mean, you find out who your friends and your acquaintances are. They are two
Yeah.
different groups. You certainly find out the strength of your family. And I think my kids are better off because they saw dad go through that. And I
Hmm.
never gave
Hmm.
up. I mean, there were a handful of bad days, but most of them were just days where you had to figure out how you're going to take a step forward today.
Right.
And we worked our way through it. So you find out that you're far stronger than you ever thought you were. So that seeming failure turned out to be one of my greater successes. I mean, I wouldn't want to start
Yeah.
over again at age 40, but it turned out I did, and we've
And you,
done well.
yeah, it was certainly one of those you would never choose that experience, but it sounds like a lot of good came out of it.
It really
And
did.
maybe for your kids, or what do you think, if you think about, the young people, and I'm sure it was more than just your kids, it was maybe employees and community
Sure.
members and friends who are watching you. What do you think they saw in you during that period when you were negotiating with a bank, negotiating with a state, learning those tough lessons? What do you think they saw? What would you call that?
Well, I would call that integrity, I guess, because we were very open
Sure.
with the employees about what was occurring. We weren't naming names and things, but hey, we got a problem here. We need to keep doing what we're doing. Here's where you need to perform well. Here's what we need to focus on. This is what's important about operating. And my pledge to them was, you're not going to lose your jobs. I may lose mine, but you're not going to lose yours.
Yeah,
And
right.
we were able to hold true to that promise.
Yeah,
With regard customers, we had a free Saturday car wash, and when this finally hit the newspapers are no friends of anybody's. They wanted the
right.
dramatic story,
Yeah.
and so
Good,
they
good
made a
news
mess
doesn't
of it.
sell.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm there at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's one of the few times I really dreaded showing up for that Saturday car wash because, normally it was a fun time. We're talking with our customers about Monica
Right.
Lewinsky or whatever
Right.
the issue of the day was. It
Right.
was really social, highly social.
Right.
And I got there at 7:30. I'm kind of dragging my feet and just wondering what's going to happen. And I think the first customer came in with 2 dozen donuts at about 7:15.
Wow.
And they just came in and supported me and just thanked me for what we did. You're going to get through this. We're with you. All
Hmm.
that kind of thing. One of them even interrupted our sales meeting that morning just to say, "Hey, look, y'all are the greatest." So, I we didn't lose any of that. What we lost was an asset.
Yeah.
And what we really did was we lost the value of the asset. It was reduced in value by about $500,000 at
Mhm.
time of sale because of this. But
Right.
everything else occurred as you normally would expect.
Hmm.
And it was a smooth transition. We kept the service department open the entire time that we went through this trial, even though we couldn't sell. And we
Yeah.
took care of our customers, and it worked well.
Yeah. Good for you. That's a tremendous story. A tough one. I mean, having someone steal over 600 grand from you and then having to fight your way through that and all the trials and tribulation of it,
Yeah,
ending up the way that it did. But like you said, you learned who your friends really were, right?
exactly.
But I think a good part of it is just like the people who showed up with the donuts and said you were going to make it. It it really happened that way because you'd planted some seeds along the way too. I mean, you had shown people that you were a man of integrity. Your business served the community well. They knew your beliefs and values. They'd seen your behaviors, right? They knew that this wasn't a part of who you were. So I think, give yourself a little credit there too. I think the seeds we plant do grow and come back to serve us good and bad. I think in this world,
Well,
the
I
other,
really think, Wayne, when you play the
yeah,
long game and you
yeah,
want to take care of people and you show that in everything you do, not just in the moment, you do.
yeah,
Those seeds start to grow a little bit, and it
yeah.
worked out well.
And the comment you made about your employees with integrity was is really important. I always say that one of the key factors to be a great leader of a team is mutual human respect and shared responsibility. And you mentioned a component that fits well with those two concepts, and you didn't use those words, but I just said I wrote down transparency as you were talking.
Yes.
One of the things that you can do when a business is doing well or not doing so well is to be as open and honest as you can with a team about what's going on. And that transparency of communication is really important. It happens not only in smaller businesses like the one that you were running, but also in large, bureaucracies. We have this, kind of control of information that happens in the hierarchy of businesses
Yeah.
and organizations. And sometimes that serves us. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary, of course, because you
Sure.
don't, you really don't need to share everything. But what I found is there's a lot of information that can be shared, and if you build the trust of your team by being open and honest about what you're trying to do, and not let them feel like they're operating with, just a glass that has a little bit of communication in the bottom of it, it really works pretty well. So I like that.
Well, so perhaps this is a pearl for somebody out there who's wondering how to operate their business or grow it a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah.
The transparency occurred on a continual basis. And we did a weekly newsletter that went out with paychecks. I had a card file on my desk and we'd check off marks, but I found a way on every paycheck that I signed to do about a 20% ratio of attaboys on a weekly basis. Hey, you did a great job on that. I saw this, just something to let them know that I was watching, to communicate our values. In the service
Hmm.
department, we had a sales customer satisfaction level and a service customer satisfaction level posted along with that previous week's productivity, quote of the week, some other fun facts and things like that. Then we did quarterly employee meetings just to let them know how things were going. You see behind me, there's a hubcap of life mounted on the wall. Okay.
Yeah.
I stole that off of about a 1982 Dodge Ram. but we just had everybody throw their name in the hubcap of life. And when we're having these
Yeah,
quarterly meetings, we'd pull
yeah,
something out and we
yeah,
go, "Hey, Bob,
yeah,
what's the mission statement?"
yeah.
And if you got it, then you got to pick out a one of four pockets that I had, and I had a 10 in one, and a 20 in the other, and a 50 in one, and a $1 bill. So
Uh-huh.
it was a little bit like let's make a deal.
Right,
everybody was
right,
waiting to see who got zonked,
right.
but you made it fun. And what
Yeah,
occurred from that was this didn't become a job for our employees; it was a cause. They
right.
were a part of the cause, and they were an integral part of the cause, and they knew it. And that's what drove it forward. Worked out really great, and we had
Yeah.
super people too.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I love to hear those stories. When they know you're watching and they know you care, it's a different ballgame. You know, I expect that they also were watching how you treated customers when there were problems. I know there's never any problems in the service department of a car dealership, but just imagine there were. Whether if you're in a OEM run store, it often comes around warranty issues and policy issues, right, and all those kinds of things. But I'll bet you had a few customers who you needed to take care of or not take care of, and your employees were watching how you did that, how you were your sense of fairness translated through to your business.
I love angry customers. They're the best customers ever if they're handled well
Yeah,
because they have expectations. All you have to do is meet them. They're very, very
right.
clear usually about how they want things done.
What they expect, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a proper way to set up so that you can succeed through that. Number one,
Right.
we spent the time and the effort required to make sure our technicians and our people that were serving our customers were well trained. Our
Hmm.
sales staff had to be certified with the manufacturer within 12 months of hire or they were terminated. Our technicians went to every possible seminar they could go to the extent that some of my best guys, when the factory saw them coming, they'd split the class and let my guy teach half of it. So we had an ability to solve the problem. We knew that already. Our capacity was good. When a customer comes in, we let them vent because they're going to anyway. It's best to just, okay, what's the problem? And
Yeah.
they dump it all on your desk. The
Hmm.
second step was to clarify. So, okay, so that you understand, there's a limit to this and you bought the car as is, and, we don't have to do anything. However, no one is more important than a customer in my dealership. What can I do? What does it take to fix this? And no matter what it is, do it. Now,
Hmm.
sometimes it's difficult because you're trying to diagnose a problem. Most of the
Yeah.
time, it's something that wasn't under warranty or that type of thing, or they
Right.
bought a used car and they've had it for 6 months and the air conditioner quit working and they're mad about it.
Hmm.
So you do that and you just take care of it. You don't charge them. You don't. You can't do $10 less than what they expect, or that'll give them a reason to gripe. You just
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm.
And what we found was that we cut our advertising costs. In the retail business, it's not uncommon for dealers to spend 20, 50, $100,000 a month in advertising. We spent, and literally I was in a dealer 20 group, which is a group of
Right.
my peer dealers.
Right.
I was 1/10 the average of the group in advertising
In
because I
advertising.
turned that money into taking care of my
Goodwill.
customers and
Yeah.
spending it on goodwill and policy. And my
Right.
customers were loyal to me because I took care of their problems. And you couldn't
Hmm.
find anybody that really had a gripe about our dealership.
Right.
So it's just how we really allocated what we had.
But it's interesting because what it does, it puts your money where your mouth is. You told me earlier that you're service oriented, you have a strong service ethic, you're looking to take care of the customers. It's expensive to do that sometimes in those situations, but you funnel the money away from promoting yourself and promoted, the customer being happy, and that word of mouth actually generated business for you, so you didn't have to advertise as much.
Well, it was really good plus business as well. We had a customer class, and
Mhm.
so every month we'd invite the folks in that had purchased vehicles the previous month,
Right,
and we'd tell them about our service department and everything else. We'd joke about it. We'd tell them that we had free pickup and delivery for a 75-mile radius. We'd
right,
tell them that we guaranteed lowest price. So if they wanted to bring their other car to us,
yeah,
no problem.
yeah,
And what we found was that where Chrysler thought we should have five master technicians, maybe an oil change guy and a couple people on the front desk, we
right,
had 32 people in our fixed operations
right,
staff.
right.
And we were running, 300 repairers a week, and the customers were loyal. We had a hard time scheduling the 300. We
Yeah.
needed more capacity. So it all grew. And if you're familiar with the car business, the service end of the business is by far more profitable in terms of percentages of markup and so forth.
Yeah.
So it really supported our store and it worked
Yeah, it's
out
kind
well.
of it's 60/40. You know, if you look at the new car department, for example, versus the service and parts department, typically you get a higher proportion of revenue from the car sales, but you get a lower percentage of the profits. In fact, I looked at an NADA number a couple of years ago. I think it was 58% on average is the percentage of the profitability for most stores in the U.S. So it's probably at
Yes.
least that, if not higher, these days.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, those are great examples. I mean, just you know, to sum up some of these things, I just love the mindset um, to take your beliefs and values and translate them into actions in the way you behave as a leader and as a business. And I think that's what you've really demonstrated in a number of different areas of leadership here, all the way from, you know, integrity, transparency, all the way to, you know, making it fun for the employees to have a business that everybody can enjoy and be a part of. Absolutely great. Looking forward, let's just take a minute before we wrap up here and see if we can imagine that we're looking back on our younger self. Now, maybe not when you were 13 and started in the business,
Yeah.
or when you were 7 with that what was megaphone that you had on the back of the truck. Uh, but looking back to your younger self, if you could give yourself one piece of advice. I mean, you've done a lot of things right through good times and bad over the years. If you give yourself one piece of advice to your younger self, let's say at 20, what would it be?
Start using your humor quicker.
Yeah.
I started my first 6 months as a sales manager, and I was, hey, you gotta go, you know, giving people a hard time about quotas and what they did wrong with a customer. And that didn't work. I mean,
Lighten up, Gordy.
they
Lighten
weren't
up.
liking it. Well, it's funny because there's a great book by C.J. Metcalf called
Yeah.
Lighten Up, and it
Okay.
talks about the proper use of humor in deploying,
Yeah.
you know, taking your job seriously but yourself lightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we started doing that early on, and really what became of that is we became, or I became, kind of person that my people wanted to work for. I
Hmm.
became likable. We were having fun. I'd walk by and see him really doing a great job with a customer. I go, hey, you're being way too nice to that person. You're fired. And everybody'd have a big old laugh about it, you know. And it was, you know, but
Yeah.
we had fun doing it, and the
Yeah.
customers saw that, and so it created an atmosphere that was really important.
I'd love to work there.
The second piece that I'd add to that
Yeah.
is always be a student of the game.
Yeah.
You can never learn enough the game. You know, things change. There are some things that are transient that are trends that last for 6 months. There are other things that are long-term standards and principles that you need to abide by in order to run a successful business. If you hire right and you bring in the right people, and I've got a criteria here that I wrote down on how we've hired over the years, and it's made a heck of a difference. And so when we're interviewing, we interview and we hire for attitude. Skills can be taught, plain and simple.
Yeah.
But we ask the really high value question in an interview is, tell me about your top 5 job duties if you get this job.
Hmm.
Now you're going to hear things like, well, I'm a technician, so I do brake jobs, and I do this and that, you know.
Yeah.
But what you're looking for out of that are 3 very, very important principles. The first is an awareness of the customer, that if the customer doesn't win,
Right.
we don't. The second is that we operate in a global environment. I mean, we have competitors. They don't have to come to us. There's somebody else will take care of them. If we're out of business tomorrow, they don't care. They'll find another place to go. And lastly, is a sense for profit. And
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that Gordy needs to get rich. What that means is that I deserve a return on investment. You give your times and your skills to this business, you should get a decent wage. And lastly, none of us wins if the customer doesn't profit by achieving what they wanted to when they came in the door. And so
Right.
when you understand profit in that regard and you look for that in your employees, now you've got people that will willingly deploy what actions you want taken and make your business a success. That's
Yeah, absolutely. No, tremendous summary. I think that's great. All right, one last question for you. So let's fast forward 20 years. I know you and I probably both be pretty old by then, but let's imagine we're still in good health and we're having a glass of wine and the sun's setting. We're at a cabin in the woods looking over a beautiful lake. Just temperature's just right, and we're reflecting back on our careers and our life. So just from a professional standpoint, maybe not a personal one. what are you most proud of? Whether it's a legacy you're leaving, or what would you just look back on and say, boy, this was really the reason that I'm pleased that with the race I ran.
And I've thought about that often, and even given thought to creating a personal mission statement at some point in
Mhm.
time. It's kind of irrelevant, but I think the most important thing, I mean, we're business people, and unfortunately, being a business person, we measure too often by wealth or accomplishment or how many
Right.
collector cars you got in your garage. Those things are irrelevant. What matters is how many people you've lifted up. So whether it's your customers, your employees, family, folks you meet at church, anyone who you can inspire and make their life better by your actions, to
Yeah.
me, that's the richest life you can have.
Well, my friend, I think that's a tremendous way to sum it up, because I too believe that touching other people in a positive way is really, our mission, our journey, our purpose in
Yeah,
business, and all other things good flow from that. So,
I do.
you certainly have touched us in a positive way today, Gordon. I appreciate your insights, sharing
Well,
details
thank you,
about
man.
your past. It's tremendous having you on the program, and I look forward to staying in touch with you going forward.
Likewise, it's been an honor. Thanks so much.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. If you like our conversations, please feel free to hit the subscribe and like buttons. And if you'd like to make comments, ask questions, or even explore being a guest on this program, you can reach out to us via email. It's wayne@greatroad.com. That's WAYNE at GR numeral 8 ROAD.com. And until next time, always remember, the high road leads to a better place.